Hi, welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. This is Deanna. I'm starting a new type of video where we will look at books, rug hooking books together, because there are so many out there. And what I'm finding for myself, having a huge collection but always wanting more, is that Amazon, if you're getting them from Amazon, doesn't always show you the inside of the rug hooking books. Other books always, but rug hooking books usually not. They're sometimes very small presses and publishers, and they're not bothering to show you what's inside the book, so you don't know what sorts of patterns you're getting. And sometimes I look at Amazon reviews and people say, oh, I didn't like the book for this reason or that reason. And I'm thinking, well, if you had only had some idea other than the front cover of the kinds of patterns that are inside that book and the kinds of inspiration and information, then maybe you wouldn't have bought it or wouldn't be giving it a bad review or whatever. So I thought it would be good to do a series of videos about books that are available that you can get if you like, and showing you the kinds of detail that's inside the book, the kinds of projects that's inside the book. And I'm going to be putting an affiliate link on everything, so you can click right on the link to Amazon to the book if you love the book. Now, this is the first video where I'm doing this, and as far as I can see, it's impossible to reverse text legally with YouTube videos. So knowing that, the text will be reversed, but of course the pictures, it doesn't matter. So just use your imagination. I'm aware of it, but I'm sorry about that. So the two books that I want to look at today, the reason I'm choosing two is because they're by the same author, Minick, and I love, 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 love her work. She's always talking about the Michigan Lakes district where she was from, and Nantucket. There's a lot of sort of seaside ambiance and feeling that's wonderful for summer. And her book that I've got in my hand here is called American Summer. We're going to be looking at this one, and we're going to be looking at her other book, Americana collection. So these are both Minick books, and there is some similar information in both, and they are printed by two different publishers. That's why that is. One is Patchwork Place, and I think one is Kansas City Star Quilts. So different publishers, a lot of overlap, but let's talk about the things that are different that make it worth buying at least one of these books, if not both. I'm going to change the angle of the camera for a minute so you can look over my shoulder, but these are going to be both very summertime inspiration books with lots of good information. And I just want to say, before we start looking through the book and looking at the kinds of projects that are pictured, that with some books you get an author who is very cut and dry, very old school, traditional, telling you how high the loop should be and how far apart, and you must do it this way and you must remember this. What her style of writing and her tone to me is very light and very encouraging. She's all about find your style, find your colors, because her colors are very much blue, white, sort of primitive colors, very limited palette. But that's where she is right now with her color thing. Maybe the next book will be fuchsias and greens like Kate Fassett or something. But she's all about you find your way, try it, try this out, see if you like it. Put, hook around it, see what you think of the colors. She's not a cut and dry, super traditionalist hooker in terms of approach. And I think that's really positive, particularly for people who are beginners and they don't want a head full of rules. You just want somebody to say, here's an idea, just get going. And if you don't like that idea, here's an alternate idea, just get going and see it through and see if you love it, because it's easy and it's fun. And her tone and her approach in these books is very conversational. So in terms of reading, I've read these cover to cover. In terms of reading, a very nice read, very nice in-bed read, particularly in the summer when you might want to do one of these patterns. So I'm going to bring you over my shoulder now. We can look at some of these patterns and talk about the differences between these two books. I ordered both because they are very different, but see what you like out of these two books. I'll be right back with you. So here is the Americana collection book, and as the cover suggests, it's full of very primitive, patriotic designs. Really, really, really beautiful. This is an example on the cover of what you're getting. This is her Uncle Sam hat pattern. Lots of flags. There's a beautiful, like, washed out light flag in here, plus two other flag designs. So there's at least 3 flag rugs. So make sure that you like Americana if you pick this one, and make sure you like primitive. There's also an exceptionally pretty Santa. So let's look inside a little bit. This is published by the Patchwork Place, and there will be a link to this. Hope you can see this, sorry. But what I really love about this book is that she's showing you lots of really nice primitive patterns, all original patterns of hers. She's doing them in a limited palette, but she does do a lot with scrap type borders. So you can pull out your leftovers or your colors and pop some of these designs with color. You do it any colors you want. But she is giving you a lot of information and a lot to work with. And I want to say before I go any further, one of the things I found out about taking patterns out of books like this is her Pledge of Allegiance flag. And it has the actual pledge, and then you're seeing the pattern, and she's going to be telling you how to enlarge the pattern to get this design to be able to work it. Now, one of the things I found out yesterday when I called either Staples or one of those places that has a copy center, when you copy something like this, if you give them a design from a book and you tell them how much bigger you want it or your own design, I thought that kind of thing, for them to do that for you on a huge printer and give you a giant piece of paper back, I thought that that would be super expensive. And indeed, if you want it within the hour, it's like $25. That was the price I got yesterday in May of 2020. But if you want it later in the day when they have time, it's $4 for a giant piece that's about 40 by 30 or something. So it's good to remember that when you're looking at these patterns, you don't have to think about how to enlarge it. You know, if you want to spend $5, you can have them enlarge it at a copy place. So this book is full of great patterns like this. This is like the patriotic flag and her chickens. She's got some really cool, simple designs. There's the Uncle Sam hat that we saw earlier. Beautiful older, like hat tips to older styles, like, you know, the bouquet in the middle with still the flags, the washed out flags, like vintage, and the blues. But it's a lot of this kind of thing. And a lot of personal stories in here, which I love too. I'm loving this Santa. It's so different. And one of the other things she's showing you in these books is her, personal collections. Like she collects these game boards, old-time game boards, and, you know, checkerboards and Chinese checkers and Parcheesi and stuff like that. She collects checkerboards, and she collects old sand pails, like the tin sand pails. And she's got this is her sand pail piece, which I think is extraordinarily pretty. And she shows that in a couple different colors. She's showing you the inspiration for her pieces too. And at the end of this book, there's a nice baseball one for guys or girls. Sorry, that was super sexist. Just because I don't like baseball doesn't mean you don't, right? And then she's got at the end a whole section on basics. Now this part of basics, telling you about how to do the basics of quilts. Sorry, she has a lot of quilts in here. That was like Freudian thing. Showing you how to do the basics of rug hooking is also pretty much the same information that's in this book, American Summer. So there's basics in both books, and they are truly basics for beginners. If you are a beginner and this is your first book that you're going to try to take a pattern out of it and bring it to the copy shop and blow up and transfer, she's showing you how to transfer. She talks about the red dot method, the transfer method. There's lots of methods. She talks about using permanent markers to transfer it onto the backing. Of course, you want to use the industrial Sharpie so they never bleed. And she talks about finishing the edges, because she does a real particular edge finish that I'm going to show you. This is the cover, and you can see she's got some tremendous, this is one of her sand buckets that she collects. She's got some tremendous work in here. But let's look inside where it's maybe less glary. American Summer, very, very Nantucket to me, the feel of this. Really, really pretty. So she's showing you at the beginning, this is a lot about her family, which is really interesting too, because she's got 3 boys, and I guess they've historically had an Airedale that appears in a lot of her work. Now there's the baseball guy again. That pattern, I'm not sure whether it's in here or not, but there's not a lot of repeat patterns. So if you end up getting both books, that's not going to be a huge disappointment, because they're very different. The other one's very patriotic, and this one's very nautical. She's showing you her own style in here for binding a quilt. Again, a rug, I'm sorry. And this is the method of putting tape around the edge before you do it, and then turning it under and sewing it. So this is not going to be the kind of edge you would want with something on the floor, because it would get worn out really fast. But for something on the wall where you don't need a heavy sort of edge to protect it, this method is really good. She is really good at explaining the how-tos and the beginnings of, and she's really good at giving you ideas for things like memory wool, when you're wanting to use wool from like your grandmother's old coat, or something special, your father's woolen tie from Thanksgiving, something like that. Memory wool is wool that's special to you because it's from someone's sweater, blanket, whatever, something personal that you've cut up and used in your piece. So she talks a lot about memory wool, which is really cool. And she also is talking on this page about marrying colors, which for people, I'm going to come back to that in a second. For people who don't want to do dyeing because of the acid content and the pots and pans and the separating everything and just the labor intensive problem of it all, she always talks in these books about marrying, which is putting a bunch of colors, like colors, into a pan, boiling it overnight and letting them soak, so that while they won't all become the same color, some of the color will loosen up, float into the water, and color the things around it. So you will have at least one common color that will be the collective color that all of those things have made, sitting overnight in a hot pot, not boiling overnight, but sitting there and sort of stewing. And then the fact that there is one common color among all of the pieces that you will then cut up and hook with is called marrying color. So you're not introducing dye, you're sharing the dye that already exists among the other pieces. And with having one common color, you will find that the colors just ring. They go together automatically. You don't really have to think about it. They do the work themselves. But she's got lots of cool tips like this in both books. And this is the sand buckets again, 2 different versions of them. But she's got a lot of very cool summer patterns in here, very nautical. Those are her 3 sons, and the Airedale is in the middle there. What I love about her books is there's stories about her family and the places that her family have gone in these books. And you can see she's got the inspiration for that from this old poster. It's neat to see where people, I love this one, Bathing Beauties. It's neat to see where people get their inspiration. She got this, I read, this is an old bathing suit, but she got the inspiration for this one. I'm looking at photos of her mom and her aunt in the old days on the beach in this kind of costume. So many neat stories and patterns. This, that's the Moby Dick pattern. That reminds her of Nantucket. Moby Dick isn't set on Nantucket, of course, because Herman Melville wrote it in the Berkshires, but the whale ship Essex is a good whale association that comes from Nantucket. A lot of whaling history there. Beautiful checkerboard. What a fun thing to do for your grandkids or your kids. Something you can actually use and play with, but very nautical. As you can see as I'm flipping through, I love this one too, Beach Gal. That has to be in my top 10 favorite patterns of all time. And her inspiration was this 1910 noisemaker. So neat, right? But very blue and white. And again, she will encourage you to come up with your own colors. She's got this nice pattern that reminds me of a whirligig. It's a boy on the beach, but you can tell by the position of his hand, both hands, that it's like a whirligig. And this is I think that's the Chatham Windmill on Cape Cod. This is the old tattered flag type thing, the white flag, Old Glory. Really different. A lot of flag patterns in here. That's her mermaid she did for the Historical Society on Nantucket, and that's been real popular. Okay, and I wanted to mention that this is the book, not the other, but this book alone, that on page 74, she switches to quilts. So this book has both rug hooking stuff in it and quilting stuff in it. And as you can see, the quilting stuff is just a few pages. This is the rug hooking stuff at the beginning. So 70-something pages of rug hooking and a few pages of quilting, but really beautiful. Both of these books are really beautiful. And again, I'm going to put links to both of them. I can't think of 2 better books to represent summer. Summertime colors, summertime motifs, patriotic motifs. We're heading toward the 4th of July. Both of them have patriotic stuff. I mean, how good does it get with flags and old bathing beauties? This one is a bit more patriotic, and this one is a bit more nautical. So I hope that helped. I'm going to be posting links to both of these. I love both of these. I'm going to use both of these. I've read both of these, like I said, cover to cover. This is really fun stuff. Highly recommend. Not every book I'll recommend. These 2 books I really recommend. Really fun. Hope that helped. Something to look at. Enjoy yourselves, and I'll see you soon.